Hello and welcome back to our channel. My name is Lisa. I am the owner and head coach at Nutrition Coaching and Life, where we help people lose body fat, increase their muscle mass, and improve their body composition and relationship with food. Today, I have another research recap in store for you. I'm digging into the research review Body by Science, the February issue, and it is my favorite research review, as some of you might know by now. It's written by Bill Campbell, where he reviews 2 studies every single month that pertain to training, nutrition, and health in general. I highly, highly recommend it. I will put the link into the show notes. It's only like $7.99 per month. And yeah, I think he always manages very well to make very difficult topics understandable for the layman, so to speak, but even for coaches, for me, it is super, super helpful. So today's topic is actually, I will share the cover with you, is morning loaded versus evening loaded calorie dieting. What's best for fat loss and maintaining muscle? Meaning, is it better to have a large meal in the morning or in the evening? Does it actually matter? The study that they reviewed is titled Weight Loss is Greater with Consumption of Large Morning Meals, and Fat-Free Mass is Preserved with Large Evening Meals in Women on a Controlled Weight Reduction Regimen. This was a study done by Keim et al. In 1997. Now, before you say, Lisa, this is really old, what am I supposed to do with this? Might not be relevant anymore this day. Bear with us. Bill is going to explain very nicely why he has chosen this study. So essentially, the question is it better for weight loss to have most of your calories in the morning or most of your calories in the evening? So here is some background information that Bill provides. To optimize body composition, is it best to front load your calories or backload your calories? When doing background research on this topic, I, Bill, realized that the limited research on this topic was all over the place. For example, one of the earliest scientific investigations I could find on this topic dates back to 1975. I found a figure for a study that summarized an investigation with 3 subjects that were provided a 2,000 calorie meal that they consumed at either breakfast only or at dinner only for 7 consecutive days. While I was able to find a summary figure of the body weight data, I could not find more details from the study. What I did find was very clear. Consuming all 2,000 calories at breakfast resulted in weight loss for all 3 subjects, and consuming all 2,000 calories at dinner resulted in weight loss for all 3 subjects. Of course, a study with only 3 subjects lasting only 1 week is not much of a study at all. Nonetheless, I will share, no, actually, we won't share the figure on this. But anyway, let's fast forward to more recent research on this topic. In 2013, women with overweight and obesity and metabolic syndrome were instructed to eat 1,400 calories per day and were randomized into 2 weight loss groups. A breakfast group with 7,000 calories for breakfast, 500 calories for lunch, and 2,000 calories for dinner, and a dinner group with 2,000 calories for breakfast, 500 calories for lunch, and 700 calories for dinner. The subjects followed their diets for 12 weeks. Not surprisingly, both groups lost a lot of body weight during the study. However, the breakfast group, so the group that front-loaded their calories, lost significantly more body weight than the dinner group. Specifically, the breakfast group lost 19 pounds and the dinner group lost 8 pounds. This is a big difference in weight loss. If you've been reading Body by Science, this research review, for any length of time, you know that the first thing we look at or look for in a weight loss study is the calorie intake data. Did the subjects follow the diet, and what was their caloric intake during the study? Having the nutrition data allows us to determine if the intervention itself was responsible for the differences in weight loss, so morning loading of calories in this case, or if adherence to the diet or calorie intake differences were partly responsible for the observed weight loss differences. Unfortunately, the researchers did not report any calorie intake data in this study. Therefore, we cannot be sure if the breakfast group consumed several hundred fewer calories per day than the dinner group, and to what extent this potential difference would have this potential difference would have on the differences in weight loss. Sorry, this didn't make sense to me at first. This was a major limitation of the study, and because of this flaw, I cannot put much confidence in the results of the study. In another study, also published in 2013, subjects followed a 20-week behavioral treatment weight loss program. The subjects completed questionnaires in which they identified if they consumed more of their calories earlier in the day or later in the day. Based on how they answered the questionnaire, the subjects were grouped into early and late eaters based on their natural food intake habits. The researchers reported that early eaters lost more weight than late eaters, losing about 5 pounds, so 2.2 kilos, more during the study, even when repeatedly consuming similar calories. It is important to note that this study was not designed to answer whether front-loading or back-loading calories was best for weight loss. Instead, the study was designed to test a specific type of behavioral treatment weight loss program and its effects on weight loss. The research team reanalyzed the weight loss data from the study with the subjects being self-identified as early versus late eaters. Since this study was not a randomized controlled trial, it is also not considered a very high-quality study and subsequently not a study that we should put high levels of confidence in. So far, I've summarized 3 different studies on morning versus evening loaded calorie distribution. All 3 concluded that morning loaded calories were better than evening loaded calories for weight loss. However, each of these studies had major quality issues, which makes it challenging for me to put much confidence in the outcomes of the study. A better quality study designed to answer whether morning or evening loaded calorie distribution was best for weight loss was published in 2018. In this study, 23 older men with obesity followed a 4-week weight loss diet with either 50% of the total daily calories consumed in the morning or evening. After the 4-week diet, the morning loaded group lost 15 pounds of body weight, which was the same amount of weight loss in the evening loaded group. So we have 2 studies that I'm aware of published on this topic at first glance, that were of superior quality compared to all of these studies. You know that we attempt to highlight only the best designed studies embodied by science, and Bill really struggled with which of these 2 studies to feature in this issue. One of the studies was much older, so 1997, while the other was published very recently, 2022. Both of these high-quality studies implemented a crossover study design where all subjects followed both diet intervention, so morning loaded and evening loaded calorie diets. The study published in 1997 had the subjects live in the research facility for over 100 days. This means that the level of control placed on the subjects was outstanding. Unfortunately, there was no washout period in the study. The high-quality research published in 2022 implemented many more physiological assessments, for example, hunger hormone blood testing, energy expenditure measured with the gold standard doubly labeled water technique, and appetite or hunger assessment. And it also included a washout period between the 2 diets. As you can see, it was a tough choice to make for Bill. Both of these studies were very well designed and had features worthy of highlighting in this issue. However, as he read both studies more fully, it became apparent that the 1997 study has some considerable flaws that the 2022 study did not have. Even though the 1997 study had these flaws, Bill decided to highlight this study in this issue. He thought it would be a valuable exercise to dive into this issue or into the study, and then take the time to point out why we cannot fully trust the results from this study. Before we get to that study, I'll briefly summarize the other high-quality study. The latest study on morning-loaded versus evening-loaded calories was published in 2022. 32 subjects with obesity or overweight underwent 2 4-week calorie-restricted weight loss diets. This was a crossover study in which all subjects followed a 4-week morning-loaded calorie diet and a 4-week evening-loaded calorie diet. The morning loaded diet provided 45% of total daily calories at breakfast, 35% of calories for lunch, and 20% for dinner. The evening loaded diet reversed this calorie load with 20% of total daily calories at breakfast, 35 for lunch, and 45 for dinner. There was a 1 week washout period between the two diet interventions. For example, half of the subjects started with the morning loaded diet first, followed this diet for 4 weeks, then took a week off from dieting, that's called washout period, and then began the evening loaded diet intervention for the final 4 weeks. The other half of the subjects started with the evening loaded diet first, followed this diet for 4 weeks, took a week off the washout period, and then began the morning loaded diet intervention for the final 4 weeks. During each of the two diet interventions, the subjects consumed the number of calories equal to their resting metabolic rate. This averaged about 1,750 calories per day during the 4-week diet phase. The researchers also measured the energy expenditure of the subjects during the study. The average daily calorie expenditure was 2,850 calories. This means that the subjects on average were in a 1,100 calorie deficit during each 4-week diet phase. This study was very well designed. The subjects were not living in the research facility during the 9-week study, but were quote-unquote free living, meaning they lived at home and lived their everyday lives except following the calorie loading protocols and having to visit the research laboratory several times for testing. At the end of the 4-week diets, the subjects in the morning loaded and evening loaded diet interventions lost nearly the same amount of weight. When the subjects followed the morning loaded calorie restricted diet for 4 weeks, they lost 7.3 pounds. And when they followed the evening loaded calorie restricted diet, they lost 7.5 pounds. The researchers also measured body composition using the gold standard 4-compartment model, combining BODPOD, DEXA, and total body water measures. Body fat percentage reductions were nearly identical, with the subjects losing 1.9% of body fat following the morning loaded diet and 1.8% of body fat with the evening loaded diet protocol. Lean mass changes were also nearly identical between the two interventions. I will briefly share a screen with you. Here we go. So that's very clear, hardly any differences, teeny tiny bit more of a drop here for the evening loaded diet in the end. That's about all. Oops, sorry, let's go back. All right. 1 second. Okay. Continuing on. The authors of this study made the following statement in response to their findings. We demonstrate no differences in total daily energy expenditure or resting metabolic rate related to the timing of calorie distribution, and no difference in weight loss. This study had so many great features. They used research gold standard body composition methods, gold standard energy expenditure measurements, and a randomized crossover trial in which all the subjects in the study followed both diet interventions. The only thing it lacked in terms of quality control was that the study was a free living study. This takes us to the study we're reviewing today. This study was not the latest on the topic, but at first glance, it appeared to be the best study conducted in this area. Not only were the subjects confined to the research facility for the entire 15-week study duration, but there was also a resistance exercise component to the study. Unfortunately, the more we dive into the study details, the more we recognize some things that chip away at our confidence in the study's outcome. Nonetheless, the goal is to highlight the study, to impress upon you that just because a study is published and appears to be very well designed, there may be some methodological flaws that we need to look at and consider when forming our opinions on the topic investigated. So again, sharing my screen. Who was in the study? We had 10 women with obesity, overweight, and between the ages of 23 and 39. So the average age was 29 that completed the study. To be eligible for the study, the subjects had to be healthy, premenopausal with normal menstrual cycles, and have more than 30% body fat. At baseline, the average body composition values for the subjects were as follows. Excuse me, 170 pounds, 37% body fat. I'm sorry, I'm just going to grab some water. And a BMI that ranged from 23 to 37. Apologies. Continuing on, what did the researchers do? This was a 15-week study, so 105 days, in which the subjects lived in a metabolic suite for the entire study. Times for meals, daily outdoor walks, and exercise workouts were standardized to keep the order and type of activities similar throughout the study. This type of study is the most controlled research possible. Every meal, every workout, every snack, and total sleep and wake time are 100% monitored with this type of study. The 15-week study duration comprised a 3-week stabilization period followed by a 12-week weight loss phase consisting of a reduced calorie diet and exercise program. The weight loss phase was divided into two 6-week experimental periods, which differed by the number of total daily diet calories consumed in the morning versus the evening hours. The subjects were split into two diet treatments. First, the morning loaded treatment, which ingested 70% of their total daily calories early in the morning. And second, the evening loaded treatment that ingested 70% of their total daily calories later in the day. All subjects in the study followed a morning loaded diet plan for 6 weeks and an evening loaded diet plan for 6 weeks. These types of studies are referred to as crossover studies since the subjects will start with one kind of diet, morning loaded or evening loaded calories, and then cross over to the other diet, whichever diet they did not start off with. 6 subjects started with the morning loaded calorie treatment for the first 6 weeks and then crossed over to the evening loaded calorie treatment for the next 6 weeks. The other 4 subjects had the opposite order of diet treatments as they started with the evening loaded calorie treatment for the first 6 weeks and then crossed over to the morning loaded calorie treatment for the next 6 weeks. I will share what that looks like visually. Here we go. So this is why it's called a crossover. 6 subjects did morning loaded and then evening loaded. 4 subjects evening loaded and then morning loaded calories. And here we have a rough idea of the calorie distribution. So basically just sort of flip-flopped here. I will talk about that more in a second. Diet detail. During the 3-week stabilization phase, the subjects consumed a diet designed to maintain their current body weight with light physical activity, so walking 1 to 2 miles per day. The number of calories prescribed to the subjects was based on their estimated total daily energy expenditure, so resting metabolic rate plus calories burned from normal daily activities and light exercise. And it was done on an individual subject basis. During the 6 weeks experimental dieting phase, calories were reduced by about 500 below the number of calories consumed during the 3-week stabilization phase. The dieting calories were served across 4 meal times. So breakfast about 8 o'clock, lunch about noon, dinner about 5, and evening snack about 8. The calorie distribution was such that 70% of the total daily calories were consumed in the morning hours for the morning loaded treatment, with only 30% of the remaining calories consumed in the evening hours. And in contrast, for the evening loaded treatment, the calorie distribution was such that 30% of the total daily calories were consumed in the morning, and the remaining 70% were consumed in the evening hours. The diet consisted of 4-day rotating menus that were comprised of conventional foods. The macronutrient composition of the daily diets remained consistent throughout the 12-week diet phase of the study and consisted of approximately 60% carbohydrates, 20% protein, and 20% fat. Excuse me. The relative protein intake was also held consistent during the 6-week diet intervention at 1.2 grams per kg or 0.55 grams per pound. Now, talking about the exercise details. In addition to the 500-calorie deficit the subjects adhered to during the 12-week weight loss intervention, the subjects also engaged in an exercise program. The exercise program consisted of 3 components. We had outdoor walking, we had indoor treadmill walking or stationary bike, and we had a circuit exercise training. The outdoor walking was done at a pace of approximately 3 to 4 miles per hour for 30 minutes. In addition, subjects performed aerobic exercise by walking on a treadmill or stationary bike for 5 days per week between 9 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. The requirement for this was to burn about 350 calories per session. To achieve this level of energy expenditure, subjects walked on the treadmill for about 35 minutes and rode on the stationary bike for about 45 minutes. The resistance exercise began after the stabilization phase at the start of the experimental period. All exercises were conducted on a universal machine 3 days per week between 9 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. The exercises in the program included leg press, leg extension, leg curls, chest presses, triceps press downs, and bicep curls. The program progressed from performing 2 sets of each exercise at 60% of 1 RM at the start of the weight loss phase to doing 3 sets at 75% of 1 RM by the end of the study. So what physique-related outcome measurables or outcome variables were measured? The body weight was measured every day in the morning and after an overnight fast. Doing this. While body weight was measured, it was not the primary variable of interest. The primary outcome of the study was body fat loss. Body composition was measured 2 times each week by total body electrical conductivity. However, how the researchers assessed body fat and fat-free mass changes was not the typical manner in which weight loss researchers typically conduct these measures. The way that Bill and most fat loss researchers calculate body composition variables, so body fat and fat-free mass, is to estimate body fat levels first and then subtract the body fat from total body weight. Then the remaining body weight is the fat-free mass compartment. To reiterate this, the standard practice for estimating body composition that nearly all fat loss researchers use can be described with a 3-step process. So number 1, measure body weight. Number 2, estimate body fat from the validated device, for example, DEXA, BOD-POD, ultrasound, etc. And number 3, subtract body fat from body weight to estimate fat-free mass. The formula for calculating fat-free mass thereby is, I will share. That. Oh, we already had that. Is total body weight, so scale weight, minus fat-free mass using a validated device, and that equals the fat-free mass, logically. All right. And here the results were, or the reason that this specific series is followed is because there is a lot more precision and accuracy in measuring body fat than there is in measuring fat-free mass. Muscle tissue, body water, and muscle glycogen levels influence fat-free mass. In contrast, body fat is a much more stable body tissue, at least in terms of efforts to measure its quantity in the body. You always want to use the most stable or least variable tissue to start from when partitioning body composition variables, and this is body fat. This is why fat loss researchers subtract body fat from total body weight to derive estimated fat-free mass. However, this is not what the researchers did in this study. Instead of subtracting body fat from total body weight, they did the opposite. They first subtracted fat-free mass from total body weight and then estimated body fat levels. They reversed steps 2 and 3 outlined above. He'll elaborate more on this in the body composition section below, but he wanted to highlight this methodological procedure so that it's on the radar. In addition, to body composition, the researchers also measured resting metabolic rate. The resting metabolic rate was measured in the morning after an overnight fast. So, what were the results? According to the study's authors, the investigation's primary purpose was to determine if morning versus evening meal patterns affected body weight and body composition during 6 weeks of dieting, combined with initiating a resistance training and aerobic exercise program. Secondary measures included resting metabolic rate. Body composition. We'll start with body weight. The morning loaded diet caused significantly more body weight loss than the evening loaded diet. Specifically, the morning loaded diet lost about 8.5 pounds of body weight in the study, and the evening loaded diet lost about 7 pounds. If we stopped here, we could come to the conclusion that when dieting and engaging in an exercise program, it is best to consume more calories in the morning as compared to the evening. However, that is not what the study's outcome supported. We never want to only look at what happens to body weight. Bill always tells his university students that we must look at the body composition outcomes for any weight loss research study and focus on what changes occurred to body fat and fat-free mass. Only looking at body weight changes in a weight loss study and neglecting body composition is being guilty of negligence as a fitness professional. When we peel the onion another layer, we realize that the body composition results of this study reveal that an evening loaded calorie distribution is better than a morning loaded calorie distribution, at least according to the data reported in this study. According to the data reported in the study, the evening loaded calorie distribution caused significantly more body fat loss and significantly greater retention of fat-free mass compared to the morning loaded calorie distribution. We'll share this with you as well. So here again, at first glance, it seemed the morning loaded group lost 8.5 pounds in body weight, and the evening loaded group, quote unquote, only lost 7 pounds. However, when we look at body composition or the composition of this weight lost, we also see that the morning loaded group lost a lot more lean muscle mass and less fat tissue than the evening group. So the evening group retained more muscle mass and lost more body fat. In terms of body fat percentage changes, the evening loaded calorie distribution treatment lost 2.5% of body fat, and the morning loaded calorie distribution treatment lost 1.8% of body fat. We always like to look at the composition of the weight loss in terms of percentage contribution. How much of the total weight loss was attributed to body fat and how much was attributed to lean mass losses as a percentage. The morning loaded treatment lost 67% of their body weight from fat stores and 33% from lean mass tissues. The evening loaded treatment, however, lost 97% of their total body weight from fat stores and only 8% from lean mass tissue. While these results seemingly favor an evening loaded calorie distribution, please let's look at the comments and interpretation later, which provides much context for interpreting this study's findings. When we're looking at the resting metabolic rate, after reading the results of the study, the question that screams out and demands an answer is, why did the evening loaded calorie treatment retain significantly more muscle mass than the morning loaded calorie treatment? We'll address this below, but we want to look at what happened to the resting metabolic rate first. We want to look at the resting metabolic rate because in almost all of fat loss research studies, subjects who lose more fat-free mass than others, other comparison groups also have a significantly lower resting metabolic rate. It's a fascinating phenomenon, but in nearly all of Bill's weight loss research, in which resistance training was used in conjunction with calorie restriction diet or a calorie restricted diet, you can look at resting metabolic rate changes to accurately predict what happened to fat-free mass. If subjects had a significant reduction in resting metabolic rate, they also experienced a significant loss of fat-free mass. If subjects maintained their resting metabolic rate, then they were also able to maintain fat-free mass during the fat loss intervention. In this study, since we already know that the subjects in the morning loaded calorie treatment lost significantly more fat-free mass compared to the evening loaded calorie treatment, we can predict that the morning loaded calorie treatment also likely experienced a significantly greater reduction in resting metabolic rate compared to the evening loaded treatment, correct? No, that's actually not what happened. There were no differences in resting metabolic rate between the two calorie loading treatments in this study. The author stated meal pattern did not affect resting metabolic rate. If the morning loaded calorie treatment lost more fat-free mass than the evening loaded calorie treatment, they should have experienced a significantly lower resting metabolic rate. Why did these variables, so fat-free mass and resting metabolic rate, not react in congruence in the way we would have predicted? Bill thinks it's because the subjects did not lose fat-free mass in the study. So here comes his interpretation. The researchers reported that evening loaded calorie treatment was superior to morning loaded calorie treatment for both fat loss and maintaining fat-free mass. There are 4 reasons why Bill doesn't believe this data. The first reason was because the morning loaded calorie treatment did not experience any reduction in resting metabolic rate despite supposedly losing a significant amount of fat-free mass. We just discussed this. Oh, no, this is for later. Continuing on, body composition measures were not done according to the professional standards. Bill mentioned all above how the researchers did not adhere to the conventional manner of estimating body composition changes. He's never seen body composition estimated like this before, and he's been conducting fat loss for over 20 years. The way the researchers estimated body fat and fat-free mass brings into question the validity or accuracy of their body fat and fat-free mass calculations. Combining this with the resting metabolic rate data, which did not support a loss of fat-free mass in the morning loaded calorie treatment, raises serious concerns with their reported data in general. Going on, so muscle glycogen levels likely impacted fat-free mass measurements. Carbohydrates are stored in 2 places in our bodies. In the muscles, 80% of all carbohydrates are stored there, and in the liver, only about 20%. The timing of the body weight measurements could have impacted the fat-free mass measurements due to the muscle glycogen levels present in the body at the time of the body composition assessment. This study utilized a 2-compartment body composition model. A 2-compartment body model divides the total body weight into 2 compartments, body fat and fat-free mass. Using this type of model, if you have more muscle glycogen stores when you conduct the body weight weigh-in, It is counted as fat-free mass. This gives the illusion that the subject has more muscle mass, but storing extra carbohydrates is not muscle. It's just stored carbs. But it gets counted as part of the fat-free mass compartment since it's not body fat. This is why controlling carbohydrate levels in the study like this, when a morning weigh-in can be impacted by the amount of carbs ingested the night prior, is vital when conducting body weight and body composition assessments. Let me explain the potential problem with how this was carried out in the study. The only way to reduce muscle glycogen is via exercise. If you do an upper body lifting workout, you will deplete the muscle glycogen in the muscles activated during this workout. Going for a run or bike will deplete the muscle glycogen levels in the leg muscle. In contrast, if you are sedentary, no muscle glycogen will be depleted, and you'll have more carbs remaining in the muscles, which will result in not only a greater body weight, but also be counted as more fat-free mass. What time were the workouts conducted is the question. Almost all exercises were conducted before noon each day. Recall that the morning loaded calorie treatment consumed 70% of their calories and carbohydrates in the morning. Since the morning loaded treatment conducted so much exercise in the morning hours, we know that they were burning a lot of stored muscle glycogen so that they did not have many stored carbs in their bodies by nighttime. And now let's recall that the body weight was measured every day in the morning after an overnight fast. So we know that the subjects following the morning loaded calorie treatment burned through much of their carbohydrate stores by noon of the previous day. So when body weight was measured the following morning, they weighed less due to not having as much stored carbs or muscle glycogen in their bodies. Having depleted muscle glycogen levels each morning biased the body composition assessment to infer that they lost more fat-free mass, but this was just an artifact of the muscle glycogen levels that were present at the time of the daily weigh-ins. Contrast this with the evening loaded calorie treatment. They consumed 70% of their calories and carbohydrates in the afternoon each day. So when they went to bed, they had very full muscle glycogen levels. As they slept, their muscle glycogen levels remained high because they did not do any exercise to deplete the muscle glycogen. When they woke up in the morning, their muscle glycogen levels were still high. This was when the body composition was measured and body composition assessed. Every day, the evening loaded calorie treatment had their body weight and body composition tests performed in a state where they had high carbohydrate levels in their muscles. It was not until after the body weight and body composition tests and the morning workouts that these subjects had a depleted muscle glycogen state. But this muscle glycogen depleted state did not last long because after noon each day, the subjects consumed 70% of their total daily calories and carbohydrates, which replenished their muscle glycogen stores at night and which remained high until the next weigh-in and body composition assessment the following morning. Having full muscle glycogen levels each morning biased the body composition assessment to infer that they gained or retained more fat-free mass. However, this was just an artifact of the muscle glycogen levels present at the time of the weigh-ins. No other study has reported this outcome of evening loaded calories being superior to morning loaded calories for optimizing body composition. In the following section, he reviewed other studies that have investigated morning versus evening loaded calorie intake. So, for example, a 1975 study with morning loaded calories, which said morning loaded calories were better, not a high quality study. The 2013 study which said morning loaded calories were better, also not a high quality study. Same thing for the other 2013 study. In 2018, no differences between morning and evening loaded calories were reported. In 2022, no differences between morning and evening calories. The best study so far. Now, finishing off, as we can see, no other study has ever reported that evening calorie distribution was better than a morning calorie distribution. With respect to body composition outcomes, we recognize that 3 of these studies were low quality and that we should not put much confidence in those studies. Unfortunately, Bill thinks we must put our highlighted study in the same category as not being a high quality study. In his opinion, there are too many limitations and weaknesses that prevent him from putting his confidence in the results of this study. When we consider the best study ever conducted on this topic, the 2022 study, we come to the conclusion that morning versus evening loaded calorie distribution does not matter when total calorie intake is equated. So now the strengths of this current study was that it was a metabolic ward study. All data was collected in a metabolic ward for 15 weeks. When subjects live in a metabolic ward, all food intake and energy expenditure can be precisely monitored. That means there is no chance of the subjects cheating on their diets. These types of studies are expensive to carry out due to the cost of housing, feeding, and monitoring subjects. This is why we don't often see these types of studies conducted. Another strength was that there was a weight stabilization period. The researchers included a 3-week stabilization period in the study, which was designed to maintain their current body weight with a controlled diet and light exercise program. It's always a good idea to have some sort of familiarization phase to a study so that the newness of the study, new bed to sleep in, new food to adjust to, new social patterns, and so on, does not contribute to the weight loss outcomes. A familiarization phase or weight stabilization period allows the subjects to adapt to their new research environment and ideally maintain body weight so that any changes in body composition can be attributed to the diet protocols alone. Now, several limitations. First of all, the unequal meal pattern groups, meaning, yes, it was a crossover study, which meant that every subject was assigned to follow both diet interventions. These types of studies typically have half of the subjects start with one of the diet interventions and the other half with the other intervention, followed by both groups crossing over to the other diet interventions. In these types of studies, it's important to split the subjects into 2 equal groups because now most research shows that there is a greater weight loss result in whatever diet is initiated first. Part of this reason is that the human body is just more receptive to a caloric deficit because it is a new stimulus. This is referred to as a timing effect. We all know that the longer one diets, the less and less the body weight loss we expect to observe. By having exactly half of the subjects start one diet and exactly half of the other subjects start the other diet, this naturally controls for a timing effect. This study did not have an equal distribution of subjects in each diet group. Six subjects started with the morning loaded calorie distribution and 4 began with the evening loaded calorie distribution. This unequal subject distribution biased the study in favor of the morning loaded calorie treatment. Indeed, more body fat was lost during the first 6 weeks of the study compared to the last 6 weeks. Because more subjects were assigned to the morning loaded calorie treatment during the first 6 weeks of the study, we are unsure if the greater weight loss was because the calories were morning loaded or if it was due to the timing effect. Another limitation was the exercise program was not initiated during the stabilization period. Then, of course, we already talked about the washout period not being there and that no body water measurements occurred. So since the researchers assessed body composition, fat-free mass, assessing total body water would have been nice. Fat-free mass is not only muscle mass, but also includes body water, muscle glycogen levels. Whenever changes in fat-free mass are measured, we want to be able to account for any changes in total body water as well. Now, a final question. This was a long little rant here for you. I hope you still kind of enjoyed it. Again, I can only recommend checking out the research review, but a final question is, what are your thoughts on daily calorie distributions? Are there situations where you prescribe an unequal calorie distribution for some of your clients, or even how do you personally like to go about it? I would love to hear your answer in the comments. Please share them with me what your own personal distribution is or what you generally recommend for your clients. I usually say adherence always has to come first. So if you're someone who likes a big breakfast and likes a lighter dinner, and that allows you to stay within your calories, to hit your protein, that is perfect. I also don't mind if you distribute that between 5 meals or 2 meals per day, as long as you hit your calories and your protein. I generally say, even if you like a larger evening meal, a lot of people are really busy during the day, and then a larger evening meal kind of helps them relax in the evening. If that is you, and I count myself into that category as well, I would say as long as it doesn't interfere with your sleep, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I would still try to kind of finish eating maybe an hour or two before bed, depending on how large or how heavy that meal is, maybe even more. But generally speaking, there's nothing wrong with that. In terms of adherence, I do see or find that reaching about 50% of your calories before your dinner, so between breakfast, lunch, and maybe an afternoon snack, is quite helpful so that you don't feel too full or so that you don't get into the habit of calorie hoarding. And it's also very helpful to do the same thing with protein so that you already, kind of hit at least 50-60% of your protein before that dinner meal. So just to increase the adherence rate there. But yeah, I would love to hear your take on this. Again, the links to this Body by Science issue is going to be in the show notes and as well to the original study reviewed. Let me know your feedback. Please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up or a notification or something like that. And I hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for listening.